Tonight, for the first time, a former senior military intelligence officer comes forward to say what we've only imagined is true.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone.
Roswell may not have been the first event, but I've seen personally some documentation that's very compelling from a particular foreign country where they had a recovery of a vehicle in Italy.
Yeah, it was Italy.
Yeah, that's as it was explained to me. I saw some documentation.
So let's start from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You say it's a 90-year cover-up.
Just about, yeah.
90 years.
1933 was the first recovery in Europe, in Magenta, Italy. They recovered a partially intact vehicle.
Long been known that the regime of dictator Benito Mussolini documented numerous UAP during this time. This internal memo from the Italian secret services includes crude drawings of the UAPs. It's true, it's real.
Yeah, that actually happened. Italian government moved it to a secure air base in Italy for the rest of kind of the fascist regime until 1944, 1945, and the Pope Pius XII back-channeled that.
So the Vatican was involved.
Yeah, and told the Americans what the Italians had, and we ended up scooping it.
And in your book and in a lot of these interviews you've done, you talk about how you want to be forward-looking. So obviously, like Dave Grusch is talking about a craft being recovered from Italy in 1933, right?
Northern Italy, 1933. With the threat of war casting an ominous shadow across Europe, an incredible series of events unfolds, all under the supervision of one of history's most powerful and feared leaders, Benito Mussolini.
Everything began when I received by post a letter containing different documents. These documents were contained, and we are speaking of original documents, not photocopies. These documents were contained in a sheet, which is like this, you see, in the hands of His Excellency Galeazzo Ciano. Who was Galeazzo Ciano? Galeazzo Ciano was Mussolini's son-in-law.
So this 1933 crash came to light when Ross Coulthart asked him, David Grusch, about his cover-up going back 90 years rather than the usual 75 to 80, Graham. And he mentioned that this crash happened in Italy, 1933. So what was your thoughts on hearing that at first?
This particular case is supposed to have generated reports or the setting up of a special unit called Gabinetto RS-33. RS is Italian for is Ricerche Speciali, or special researchers, and 33 was supposed to mean the year. And this special group was supposed to have investigated, been set up by Benito Mussolini to study what this particular crash was and what was found there.
We studied, of course. This group, the Cabinet RS-33, was directed by Guglielmo Marconi, because Guglielmo Marconi was not only the inventor of radio and the Nobel Prize, but at that time he was the president of the Royal Academy of Science of Italy.
There is recently, and I think I know why this story is sort of in play, is that when David Grusch came forward to Ross Coulthart and eventually spoke or testified under oath to a House Senate subcommittee, subcommittee, he mentioned, I believe, a possible event that occurred back in 1933, well predating the Roswell event.
So this 33 one you said was in Italy?
Yeah, Magenta. So it's I'm bad at geography. I think that's like a Lombardy region. It's like northwest Italy. Interesting case, and then of course the Pope Pius XII and the Vatican were involved, back channeling it through the OSS, which became the CIA later.
Coming now to the subject that has raised quite a bit of interest here in Italy, that is the so-called Mussolini UFO case. confirmed before. You mentioned it also by Luis Elizondo. Could you please elaborate on the way you got to know the event, its characteristics, and so on?
The Mussolini case that, interestingly enough, is already out there in public vernacular thanks to your work uncovering that case. And the 1933 Magenta area crash was one of the events that they talked about, and that was one that I submitted in my DoD and pre-publication review to be able to talk about publicly, because I thought that was a very remarkable international case that would hopefully spurn not just U.S. interest but European interest. Pope Pius XII was involved, and he sent a communique through the OSS, the American OSS, and it ended up going to FDR's desk. But as far as I know, unless the records were destroyed, the Vatican and the Pope Pius XII section of the Vatican secret archives, there should be documented evidence.
And we had to dig into this too. We had to look into it. It's a wild allegation. Again, I get it. Catholic Church and UFOs. We've been trying to get reaction from the Vatican. We've been working behind the scenes, and joining me live steps from the Vatican right now is News Nation executive producer Susanna Pinto. She was previously a Rome-based reporter who has also worked in the Vatican press office. Thank you for being on with us tonight, Susie. I've got to ask you, you've been working on this for quite some time. You're in Rome. What have you been able to learn from Vatican officials about what David Grusch had claimed to us in that interview?
Good evening, Brian. You can see St. Peter's Basilica behind me, perhaps the most iconic and powerful symbol of the Catholic Church around the world. And yes, as you said, this is a shocking claim. The fact that the allegation that the Vatican might have known about non-human intelligence on Earth. So I've reached out to the Vatican press office for comment. The Vatican has not responded. Now, that's not unusual. This is a highly controversial issue, and it's not unusual for the Vatican to not want to comment on such a controversy. Also, though, if there were credible information about life on another planet, life in another part of the universe, it would also bring up a lot of theological questions and a lot of debate. And so it's not surprising that the Vatican doesn't want to speculate on this issue right now. We do know that the archives pertaining to Pope Pius XII's pontificate have been open to scholars and historians. That happened in 2020. Pope Francis announced that he was going to open up the archives to historians and scholars, so that they have been looking into his pontificate. And of course, it was a long pontificate. He was pope from 1939 to 1958. So far, there have been a couple of books that have come out from historians. They focus more on the Pope and World War II, but that's not to say that a historian or a scholar could continue to dig into those archives and find something. So we'll just have to wait and see what comes out, and that could take a long time, because, like as I said, it was a long pontificate, and there's every pope communicates with a lot of people. There's a lot of official communication with not only heads of states and presidents, but also different associations and parishes. So it'll take quite some time to go through all of that information. So we'll just have to wait and see what comes out. We're talking about so much content from a pontificate, whether those are official letters, communications, all sorts of things that a pope does. And of course that was many years ago, but still the Pope is a figure that communicates with not only Catholics but the world. So there's just a ton of information to go through.
It's interesting, though. I mean, the idea that the Vatican might know something related to this it isn't really that far-fetched. I don't think a lot of people realize that they have a whole unit of the Vatican dedicated to studying astronomy.
That's right. The Vatican has a Vatican observatory that dates back to the 16th century. So for the last 400 years, that observatory has been dedicated to studying astronomy, astrophysics, and really just the origins of the universe.